All right, in essence of time, I like to be punctual. We're going to go ahead and start the City Commission meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, good evening, everyone. It is so good to see a packed house tonight. We got lots of things to get through, some good recognition and some good debate. So with that, we'll start with roll call.
Benson.
Here.
Brunick.
Here.
Johnson.
Present.
Maibaum.
Present.
Minor.
Here.
Schramm.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Villanueva.
Here.
Mayor Moser.
Here.
City Manager Leon.
Here.
City Attorney Denherter.
Here.
All right, moving on in routine business, I would ask for an approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 13th, 2022.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion? Anybody in the public want to comment on the minutes? Roll call. Oh, yes. We can do consent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Anybody abstaining? Minutes passed. All right, tonight we have, we always have special proclamations. I guess you don't do proclamations unless they're special, right? So we do have a proclamation of appreciation to recognize a community individual that I don't know, Mike, it's been years, I think, that I've known you through the chamber and all our good works there. So it's a special privilege tonight to recognize Mike Healy. So whereas Mike Healy was born and raised north of Yankton and has spent most of his life as a Yankton resident, and whereas Mike has been a member of this Yankton City Planning Commission since 2006. And whereas our community is appreciative of Mike's record of community service, dedication, and positive influence through the volunteer action, and whereas Mike's dedication to Yankton and its citizens is one of a kind, and whereas the city of Yankton is honored to have Mike in our community and to have him call Yankton home. Now therefore we, the City Commission of the City of Yankton, do hereby proclaim the community's appreciation to Mike Healy for his dedication and professionalism to make our community a better place for all, and I, Mayor Stephanie Mosier, do hereby proclaim June 27th, 2022 as Mike Healy Day.
Start off with one word, wow. I really want to take this time, just make a couple comments. Very humbling to be here this evening and to experience this recognition when there's so many others out there and within the community that are doing more than I have over the years. Of course, Amy and Dave and the city and the planning commissions, I really appreciate the opportunity to be of service with you over the years, and we've had many opportunities, and that goes back even prior to 2006, as Stephanie was noting. In recent years, I think we have had some major initiatives that have worked out, and one of them being the bridge, the Discovery Bridge, and then we moved into a lot of transportation issues, including East 4th Street, which was a challenge for a while, and thanks to Dave and many others, how that worked out. And then, of course, most recently, the Aquatic Center, which has been, was an exciting time that we went through in accomplishing that. Mayor Stephanie, thank you for making this possible. I think I read some of the materials and Mike, what in the world is this all about? So anyway, I'm here. Thank you. I also like to thank you as public servants because it's not easy and there's always a lot of opportunities to not necessarily be always in the majority and that's what this is all about. So thank you, all of you, even in the community, for serving in that and making a difference for many. Jerry and I, as Stephanie noted, go back many years here, over 50 years that we've made this our home, and we've tried to serve whenever possible since that time. A week ago today, Jerry had knee surgery, so I'm her caretaker at this particular time, and she was not able to be here this evening. And so Saturday night, it was time to kind of do a little reality check, and so how am I doing? So I said, what's the report card say? And I said, I'd like to be on the dean's list. She said, there's potential. So she said, may I have another glass of water? So anyway, I'm continuing on as a caretaker, and we're moving on from there. But again, Stephanie and Amy and Dave and each of you, this is a great honor, and I thank you for the opportunity to be of service, which all of us are. So with that, greetings and thank you. Have a good meeting.
Mike, I will say you can tell Jerry that you definitely made the dean's list when it came to your good works and everything that you've done on this for the city. So again, on behalf of myself, the entire city commission and a community, you've made a real difference in, and we appreciate all your dedication and time. So thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to the city manager's report. City Manager Leon.
Honorable Mayor, members of the commission, and public, every good proclamation comes with a little bit of a roast also. No, not really a roast, but do you remember, Mike, how we met? So Mike was one of the first people I met in Yankton. We were filling sandbags, remember this? For the first, what I call the first flood, 2011 flood at the old county shop. I think with some of the fire department members, this was pre Amy being city manager. The position wasn't open, but I had, of course, an interest in Yankton for other reasons, but the whole time we were filling sandbags, you were telling me what a great town this is and how wonderful it was and how progressive you were, and was part of the reason you really sold me on the community. And then the following year, we had the sesquicentennial event, and I was like, gosh, if that Doug Russell ever moves out of Yankton, I'm going to apply for that job. So you're one of the first people I met, and you gave the whole community a great impression. So I'll always remember that as sort of one of my first introductions to Yankton, so thank you. Oh, but now it's time for me to talk business, and I won't talk long because you all have a lot of business. First, I want to talk about the 4th of July and America and fireworks, and we're going to have those on Monday. So a week from this evening, there's not a specific time. We say when it's dark or dusk, you know, I suppose around 10 o'clock, we're going to have fireworks at Riverside Park. You know, we'll keep an eye on the weather, but right now it looks like that's on. So we invite the community to come down and enjoy the fireworks at Riverside Park. They're going to be shot from the Meridian Bridge, so we don't allow folks to be on the bridge, but we want people to, you know, bring their blankets and chairs. Somebody asked me, what time do I need to be there to get a good spot? Probably, you know, the night before, if you want to park your car down there at the water plant. The Yankton Police Department will be roving with some special guests around the park, just saying hi to community members and handing out stickers to future city employees and just having a good time. So we hope everybody comes and enjoys it. I think certainly with all the problems we have, there's no problem that we can't solve in our country with the resources we have and the people we have. And so it's a good time to celebrate a lot of things, and we're looking forward to doing that. So hope we see everyone. And now I also have to talk with people about fireworks in general. Many of you maybe have heard Chief Foote indicate on the radio that this is the time of year where folks purchase fireworks. They are not allowed to be shot off in city limits, although what you can shoot in city limits or use in city limits are the novelty type fireworks, so snaps, which are not that fun, and I don't know what else there are, but I used to like those little black snakes that you light, and I love smoke bombs. But nothing that goes bang or has a projectile, I guess. So please be advised that, we want to be respectful of that, and we also have to make sure that we, are careful, even with those things, with fire hazards, et cetera. And we're going to hear a little bit more about fire here coming up in a bit. Before we do that, I want to just say a personal thank you. We have a special welcome to give this evening, which is going to happen next, but I want to thank you, Brad Mosier, as interim chief, who one of the things that's so great about the people that work for the city is when I say, hey, I need your help with something, nobody hesitates. It's right away. That's just the spirit of our organization, and Brad didn't hesitate, right away said yes. And I said, do you want to talk to the mayor? He didn't. He just said yes right away and really helped out, and I really appreciate that. This is a busy time of year from you, and I know that, and I appreciate that, and I just wanted to let you know, like, publicly how much I appreciate you stepping up in a capacity that I just couldn't fill. So appreciate that, and I'm sure you're as happy as I am about our next order of business. So Mayor, I'll ask the commission if they have questions for me, and if not, I'll let you move on.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions for City Manager Leon? All right, then we do have one scheduled public appearance tonight, so we'll start with that, but no worries if you're here from the public to talk to the commission on something not on the agenda. I'll make sure we hit that before we move on to the consent agenda. So with that, Ross, I would ask you to take your position, Chief Linke. I guess I can call you that. You haven't officially been sworn in yet, but I think I can start calling you that. We're within seconds, so I'll have you come on up, and we'll get going with that. And then I'll have you stay at the podium, Chief, when you're done.
Okay. So I am going to swear you in. Under South Dakota law, you have to be sworn in as a fire chief. So, Mr. Linke, Chief Linke, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Timothy Linke,
I, Timothy Linke,
having been duly hired to the office of fire chief
to the office of Fire Chief
of the city of Yankton, South Dakota,
of the city of Yankton, South Dakota,
do hereby swear
do hereby swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the state of South Dakota
of the state of South Dakota
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as fire chief.
of my office as Fire Chief.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. No, Chief Linke, I told you to go ahead and stay at the microphone if you would. Obviously, I've had the opportunity to visit with you several times. I think most people would understand why from Amy's comments in the city manager's report. But I also know you have some special guests here tonight, one missing, who wasn't able to be here. So I would ask that if you would please introduce your family, and then if you wouldn't mind saying a little bit about yourself to those city commissioners you haven't had the opportunity to meet yet.
Okay, well, yeah, first of all, I'm happy to introduce my wife, Tammy, and my daughter, Maya. And my son, Jackson, is also starting a new job today, so he's back in Lincoln, so that's why he couldn't be here tonight. But we miss having him here, and he'll be up here again sometime. As far as about myself, first of all, I want to thank the Honorable Mayor Mosier, City Manager, Leo. She hired me and I can't even remember her last name. Good job, Tim. I just spent like 2.5 hours with you today, and then I forget your last name. Good job, way to go. That's
That's
going to
okay.
be in my
There's a lot of
evaluation.
names. People call me a lot of things, Chief,
Yep,
so
okay.
if you can't remember Leon, just pick one.
She told me to keep my remarks to less than 60 minutes tonight, so I'm gonna do that. So, yeah, Tim Linke. I come from Lincoln, Nebraska. Have 24 and a half years of experience with Lincoln Fire and Rescue. Also 24 years with the volunteer department, and saw this as a new and great opportunity. Really instantly fell in love with Yankton when I came up to interview. And it just keeps getting better and better, like every minute that we're here. And moved up here. I moved up here this weekend. Family's going to stay back in Lincoln for a year, and then they'll be moving here after school's out next year. And I'm excited to have them here. So another thing I would like to echo with Amy's comments. Thank you, Brad Mosier, for taking on the role of interim fire chief. I've done that before. It is a thankless job, and at times it can be painful. So I'd like another round of applause for him if we could, please. Also, yeah, I definitely, as I've recognized my family being here, but there have been a few times where I've been up at the podium and forgotten to just recognize how much my family especially has contributed to where I'm at today. And there have been a lot of highs and lows, a lot of ups and downs. And if you've been in the fire service for more than 5 minutes and you've been a family member of someone in the fire service, you know what that can be like. And so thank you to my family for everything, and I know that this is just the beginning of some great things. Also, I have to recognize my other firefighters that are here, so if we could get a round of applause for the folks that came tonight. We've got drill to go to afterwards, so quick little...
Okay,
yeah,
Chief, you did notice who volunteered to be here tonight and not at drill,
I know.
right? Like,
Yeah,
you're getting
yeah.
this down. Okay.
So a quick round of applause for them. And then, yeah, I have members on the commission that are on the fire department, which is just absolutely fantastic. I can't tell you just how grateful I am for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Yankton. I promise that I won't let you down. It's a great community. We're going to grow into it, and we're going to have a good time with the fire department. So thank you.
All right. Well, Chief Linke, on behalf of the City Commission, we are so excited to have you, Tammy, Maya, and Jackson when he can be up here in our community. And I have no doubt that you all are going to be great additions to our community and our firefighter family. So, all right, with that, firefighters, unless you want to speak to the commission on something not on the agenda, I will have you get to drill. We can't have the chief late on his first night.
Thank you.
As they're exiting, is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak to the city commission on something not on the agenda tonight? All right, seeing no movement, we will move on to the consent agenda. Number 1 is to establish July 11th, 2022 as the date for a public hearing on the request for a special events on sale liquor license for 3 days, October 7th, October 22nd, and November 12th, 2022, from Ben's Brewing Company, Ben Hanton owner, which is at 222 West 3rd Street, for the Mount Marty University tailgating, which will take place at Memorial Park, located at 2000 Douglas. Number 2 under the consent agenda is consideration of memorandum 22-123 regarding approving the current list of volunteer firefighters per workers' compensation and SDCL requirements. And number 3 is consideration of memorandum 22-131, recommending approval of the application from RS Design for July 4th, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. And any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? Consent agenda passed. Moving on to old business, number 1 is consideration of memorandum 22-118 regarding the request for the request for a transfer of ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023 from Israel Montalvo, doing business as Chapiro's Tacos, to INE LLC, doing business as Chapiro's Tacos, Israel Montalvo, member, and that is at 100 East 4th Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 2 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-119 regarding the request for a special events malt beverage on sale retailer's license and special on sale wine retailer's license for one day, October 22nd, 2022, from the Center, Chris Thury, Executive Director, and that's located at 900 Whiting Drive. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 3 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-120 regarding the request for a special malt beverage on-off sale retailer's license for 4 days, August 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th, 2022, from Backspace Brewing Company, LLC, doing business as Backspace Brewing Company, Chris Allington, partner, and this is for the event Music at the Meridian. What is your pleasure?
So moved. Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 4 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-102 regarding the second reading and public hearing on ordinance 1061 that would create a wastewater surcharge to replace the current base or minimum wastewater rates. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion?
Can we get an explanation of the surcharge rates?
You're looking for explanation of the rates or the surcharge? This is just the ordinance adopting a surcharge.
To adopt a surcharge, so later in the agenda, we'll have the rates?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Any other commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 5 under old business is consideration of memorandum 22-132 and resolution 22-26 regarding the second reading and public hearing for the assessment project to pave Dakota Street between 12th Street and 15th Street. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to new business. Number 1 is consideration of memorandum 22-129 regarding resolution 22-22, which is setting a 4-year surcharge rate resolution to fund SRF Clean Water, wastewater borrowing debt, service for loans 5, 6, 607. And before I ask for the commission what their pleasure is on this agenda item, I would ask City Manager Leon and possibly Kyle to walk us through the proposal again.
Sure, so, and Al may have comment too, so these are the rates which will, excuse me, this is the surcharge which will help us fund the wastewater plant. We've been calling it reconstruction or revitalization of the wastewater plant in its current location. So you can see that it's a graduated sort of surcharge over the course of 4 years. The previous base was $11.22, and the new surcharge effective dates will be as follows. So November 1, 2022, that surcharge will be $17.53. So that's the previous base plus a $6.31 increase. That's where we get that $17.53. The same math then following November 1, 2023, that surcharge will be $23.84. November 1, 2024, $30.15. November 1, 2025, $36.46. So that surcharge will be billed monthly to all wastewater users based on the above effective surcharge table. Not a lot of comment in the public other than no one's super excited about paying more for anything really, but particularly, you know, it's tough when inflation is high and we've just increased water rates, but also in the same breath, everyone understands that they probably want to have a wastewater plant that's fully functional and operational and serving the citizens of Yankton now and in the future. So, so I would say that has been sort of echoed a handful of times, but really not a lot of comment. Did have conversation with one of you about the surcharge rate being the same for commercial users and residential users, and that's what's proposed today, so I just want to be clear about that. The reason that we structured it that way is because our sewer rates are based sort of on our water, so as you know, we have different rates based on the meters, so with water. So not all of the water that it goes through the meter goes into our sewer. Just ask my husband, because I want everything to look like the Garden of Eden here in front of my house, and we're watering a lot. Thanks, Kyle. But that water doesn't go down the sewer, so the sewer rates are average based on, you know, the amount of water that's, what do we average, the 3 lowest months, Al? Is that how we put together the
3 winter months.
The 3 winter
of
months.
December, January, February.
Knowing
Correct.
that when we're irrigating or when folks are irrigating, that water is not going through the sewer. And so that's a little bit why we didn't come up with a different rate for the larger sewer users or wastewater users. Also, so the public and the commission understands that I want to make sure that I say this right. Some of our large users are charged additional because they have to pre-treat. So some of the folks, and I'll just use American Foods as an example, they have things that are not typically going down a residential wastewater service line, going down their service line, and so they're obligated to pre-treat. So they do have an additional charge. They're also high water users. Most of our high water users are high sewer users and vice versa. So they're already paying additional in rates with water. So I just wanted to make that clear and make that clarification. And Kyle is here. He can help answer any questions if you have technical questions. But the rate is what allows us to start to move forward with the project, and we have to have those rates in place before we can execute the funding.
With that explanation, I would ask, what is the pleasure of the commission?
I've got a quick question here. I've been struggling with this throughout the day today, and I apologize, I should have had better understanding of this to begin with during our work session and our understanding. But my understanding is that this is going to be a surcharge that everyone pays the same amount. So it's going to end up being about $25 for a user, regardless of what that user uses. Now, when we were having the discussion about whether or not to do the wastewater treatment facility, the upgrade to the wastewater treatment facility, or possibly moving it, we did have a number of entities that came in and basically stated that they were in favor of keeping the facility where it's at, because they can, and they understand that we have to, we have to keep up with these things, and they can afford the increase. But what they couldn't afford, when we put them out of business, or would be a very high strain on them, would be to move the facility. Okay, and I agreed with that, and ended up voting to keep the facility where it's at. The way we're structuring the surcharge right now, those entities that said that they could afford the increase are basically not having an increase. They're going to pay $25 per line. So if you're a home, if you're a household that has 4 people in it, you're going to pay $25 in addition a month. If you are an entity that has a large usage of water, you're also going to pay $25 a month. So percentage-wise, it's way out of whack. I don't think my misunderstanding, my falsehood, and something that was on me that I should have been able to clarify before this, because I don't like bringing this up at this time. This is not the right time. I should have had this figured out beforehand. I thought that it was going to be a percentage, that this was going to be like a surcharge, and there was percentages on surcharge. So it was based off of like the line that came into your house. We have 3/4 inch line, 1 inch line. We have different rates for water rates, and I thought that there were going to be different rates for different users, but I misunderstood, and I wish I would have been able to voice this beforehand, but I do think that it's important to voice it now before we go forward and vote. I think that it's more appropriate to have it staggered in some fashion. We had a number of entities that were here that said that they were for this, and they could afford this, but they couldn't afford that, and now we're not. They're, percentage-wise, it's not even going to be comparable.
Thank you, Commissioner Bruner. Just so the commission understands as well, had we done a different project, we might need to do something not only with a surcharge, but also with rates. And we're not increasing, everyone's going to see an increase in their bill because we'll have, if approved, we'll have the surcharge. 2022 and 2023, we're not proposing any additional increase in the rate. However, unless things get less expensive in the world, going forward, we will probably in the future have rate increases, or, for example, other projects that we do pay for with our rate structure. In that case, say we would raise the rate 5% as we had the last couple of years in wastewater for the EDA improvements that are going on now, the larger users pay more of an increase on that. So I don't, yes, that's accurate. We did have folks coming in saying, an $88 million project is a lot different than a $44 million project. At that time, we were not certain either of the funding requirements and what what we were able to do with the ARPA and the SRF funding. The surcharge makes sense to us from a standpoint of the fact that it would be hard to, it's a little harder with sewer than water to disseminate what actually goes down the sewer and what doesn't. But we will have to adjust rates in the future, and when that happens, those large users are impacted more than residential users. And I don't recall the numbers, but they were significant for those commercial users. But indeed, that's accurate, and we had a good conversation today. And if the others folks were unclear on that, then maybe, you know, that's something that I need to do a better job of explaining.
I would also point out that, again, we had substantial increases in water and water surcharges also, and that's what we're proposing on the wastewater tonight. It's a historical setup that I have no idea why water ended up with different rates per water line size, because that was well before my time, as old as I am. And again, that's the same thing with wastewater. Wastewater has been the same for everybody for as long as we've had a base charge. Again, historically, I have no idea, other than that's what we're proposing again. I did take the time to project differences based on the water differences in wastewater. And again, you have so few users that are above the 1 inch, the 5/8, the 1 inch in commercial and residential. You have 449 users that are above the 1 inch. Spreading out the surcharge under the same assumption that you do on water, based on the inch line coming in, it mattered to a difference of $2.10 for the average user. So it's not a lot of expense that everybody is taking on, other than we're all sharing it equally. And again, if I'd have used a table like we do on water, it would have saved the average user $2.10 in total over 4 years. So you're saving about 50 cents a year. On the other hand, the impact on some of those large users, for instance, we have 3 customers right now that have 8-inch lines. Their base charge, if we'd based it the same as we did with water, their surcharge would have been $2,988 a month compared to the current $10.22. So I understand where you're coming from. All I can say is I'm doing it the same way historically as we've done it in the past, but I'm certainly open to suggestions. So.
Well, I appreciate the clarifications. You know, I think all of us that are here are trying to make the best decisions that we can that are for everyone that's inside the community. I had these questions earlier today. I think that they were valid questions, and I think that they're questions that the public needs to hear and know, and then so that we're not. I didn't want it to be something that I had a question on and then I didn't ask it. I felt that it was important to ask. I felt it was important to get answers to. I do think that it's the right thing to do to move forward to get the surcharge in place, because it's the wastewater. It's something we all use. It's something that we all. It's not a. It's more than a quality of life. It's an obligation. So I appreciate the answers.
Commissioner Brunick, I just want to say thanks for asking that question. I'm sure if you had that question, there's probably others that had that question as well. That helps with clarification for me, but it also, I applaud you for asking for clarification before voting on something too. I think that was really smart. Thank you.
You know, and I appreciate that as well, Commissioner Brunick, and I think the best way to decrease the cost for everyone is to increase the number of users, and this facility is a big step in that. You know, if we have a situation where news gets out that our wastewater failed, I can't imagine too many people being excited to move to Yankton and fill the jobs. Likewise, if we have a good facility, no one hears about it, and so it's not a deterrent, right? I mean, that's the best case scenario. No one hears about our wastewater and water because they're not in the news for bad headlines. So anyway, I think we're on the right track.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I would ask what your pleasure is.
So moved.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Is there additional commission discussion as a result, per the rates that we're proposing tonight?
The one thing that I just wanted to throw out there, and it's not necessarily a favorable thing, but you have to share it. And I just wanted to have some kind of comparison in mind, because I know that as a city commissioner, I'm going to be asked it. I just pulled some data from one of our neighboring communities just outside of Sioux Falls. There's communities like ours across the state that are going through these motions, that they have to invest in their infrastructure. And in some ways here in Yankton, we're in a great location. For instance, being right next to a river, having talented staff. What can we do, speaking of quality of life, to keep the burden low? Anyway, so I was looking at one of the breakdowns that they have, and so you look at a community like Harrisburg. This is from 2020. For the 5,000 gallon rate, $103.67. And what Al was kind enough to put together for us, when you look out, currently what we're looking at is $45.22, right now. So Harrisburg, 2 years ago, they were over $100. Now where we're going, as it projects here to year 4, we're going to be looking at $70.46. Essentially, if nothing changed, there's communities that also have their own projects going on, but that's going to put us at number 2. That's a pretty high place to be, not necessarily where you'd want to be. But other communities like Brandon, they're at about $70 that they're currently having to pay for their sewer rates. Madison, everybody else is below $50. That I'm seeing here, and that's your top 10 municipalities and a lot of different municipalities. So it's one of those things, infrastructure, especially sewer. We've heard it many times from our city manager. This poop's got to move. It has to. You don't want it to stop, because so many things can go wrong so quickly. It's tough to swallow the fact that, in the next, 2025, we're going to be expensive. I remember having this conversation with Charlie a long time ago, just before I hopped on the city commission, about are we going to be a competitive community to live in, in comparison to like a Vermillion and in the Sioux Falls, and that was 2015, and you couldn't beat Yankton back in 2015, even compared to Vermillion that has their own electrical utility. So, it's a tough pill to have to swallow, but the alternative, that's even tougher, because it still has to flush. So again, I wish, one other thing that I wanted to add too, because I've got a lot of respect for some of our bigger manufacturers here in town. We mentioned a couple of them, not named, but one of them that did come here and essentially said, don't go too big, basically do what we're doing now. And I will say, I spoke to some of the employees who work there, and I shared my thoughts, and I think I've shared my thoughts with some of the other commissioners here as well, and that is that I don't necessarily appreciate that attitude, because from a company that has multiple locations here in South Dakota, we're a fantastic deal tax-wise. No corporate income tax. This manufacturer who came and spoke here, they've got a location in Missouri. That's no fun paying that kind of corporate income tax. So for that, employer to come here and say, don't make that big change because that's going to affect our bottom line. Well, I'm sorry, unless you want to provide us with a holistic look at what your books are, I think you have a great opportunity here in South Dakota, and one of the advantages, I suppose, that we have in a community like ours is we actually get to pick and choose the things that mean a lot to us, that we want to support, and we don't necessarily have to, do everything that our elected representatives and peer tell us that we have to do. We get to decide what's important to us, whether it's opt out to make a pool happen. Not every community does that. Not every community has a perpetual care cemetery like we do. But in a situation like this, again, it's a lot of money that we have to spend on infrastructure that's going to be around for decades and decades to come. And I'm going to hold out hope that, this decision aside, we're going to make a lot of good decisions in the years to come that are going to continue to make us a very competitive community to live in comparison to our brethren throughout this state. And, we had a gentleman move up here from Lincoln, Nebraska. Love Lincoln, Nebraska. He's going to have a great time living in Yankton, South Dakota for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, we're going to end up having to increase our rates for the next few years. But my opinion is it's the right move to make. And there's so many other things that I think we are going to be able to do in the years to come that are going to help offset what I see as, the unfortunate burden of having to make sure that the poop continues to flow in the right direction.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, we all want clean water to come out of our faucets when we turn them on, and we all want stuff to go away when we don't want it anymore, right? So it's important. I make light of that, but I know this is a serious discussion. I do know, and I've spoke to several commissioners, the timing was hard on this. Kyle and I were talking this morning that, when we went to do the water treatment plant, we had a lot of time to talk to the community and get them to understand the importance of this. And with wastewater, we didn't have that luxury time, but partly because if we didn't act quickly, we wouldn't have $18 million of outside funding to put towards this project. And I would hate to think what those costs would be for our citizens if we didn't have the 18 million that we could offset the costs. So again, we have a motion and a second. That motion and a second, just to clarify again, is adding $6.31 to the surcharge, which puts that November 1st, 2022 at $17.53, November of 2023, $23.84, November 2024, $30.15, and November 2025 at $36.46. So I wanted to clarify that. Again, we have a motion and a second. Any further commission discussion? Commissioner Maibaum, did you have something else you wanted to, okay. Anybody in the public want to address the commission on this? Seeing no movement, Al, roll call.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Mayor Moser.
Aye, motion carries. Number 2 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-130 regarding resolution 22-21, which is setting a tipping fee rate increase for the Yankton Joint Powers Transfer Station. That increase proposed to you tonight is for $4.50 for just 1 year at this time. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I understand Tom Nelson is here from the JPA board. Did you want to address or say anything to the commission on? Okay, if you want to step up to the podium. I said your name, but if you could give us your name and the role you play on the board.
I'm a volunteer citizen for Yankton County, which includes the city of Yankton. I represent the people. And I know we had the most recent rates study, if that's what it's called, was 3 years ago. And this is what their recommendation is from that was 2018. This is just
Okay, I will ask that you hand out the form and then wait to speak until you get back. No, you can hand out the form, but if you could wait to speak until you get back to the mic so that those that watch online, and we do record the meeting, are able to hear what you say.
I can hand it out to the rest of
This is from the most recent, I guess you would call it a rate study, which was 2018. And so currently, the proposed rate increase, as far as a citizen, I think any rate increase is considered a burden to the public. According to, as far as like what the options would be, according to this, one of the first questions I had in the meeting was, what should our cash reserves be? And currently, our cash reserves, Al can clarify, is 2.3 million approximately. And the last time we did a rate review, 2018, it was 1.7, so that has risen. Number 3 on here, under finding and recommendations, it is maintaining an operating reserve equal to 3 months of O&M. So how would that be? Is that 3 months of the yearly budget? Because our yearly budget's around 2.1 million for our operating budget.
I'm sorry, your question?
As far as, you know, the study was recommending we have reserves of 3 months. And I think our reserves are significantly higher than 3 months, if that's correct or not.
Correct, they are. The thing I would point out, though, is at the end of 2021, Vermillion, again, keep in mind, these are two different entities, but our purse, so to speak, is a joint purse. We share in the money back and forth. At the end of 2021, Vermillion was fortunate enough to receive a loan and a grant of about 1.8 million. The grant portion of that was about 500,000. The loan portion was about 1.3 million. So again, while right at the moment we are at 2 million, it's kind of trying to look for the word here. It's an image, so to speak, basically because we just received the loan funds and the grant funds. The grant funds, it's great. We don't have to pay that back. Loan funds, we do. So there's annual debt service. So if you look at where we were, I believe it was 2017 you talked about.
I do have, 2017 was 1.7 million, 2018 was 1.7, 2019 was 1.8, December 2020 was 2.1, October 21 was 2.7, and May 22nd was 2.3.
So again, if you take that loan/grant off of there, we're barely any different than we were 6 years ago. And oh, by the way, the 5-year plan, we're short over $3 million in revenue, so to speak, to offset our capital expenditures. That's the whole reason the Joint Powers is looking at a rate increases. And that doesn't take into account any operating costs in the next 5 years. Just capital alone, we're $3.2 million short. So without getting more loan/grant, our reserve is gone, and we don't have enough to do the operating increases that will happen in the next 5 years. So yes, if you look at the moment in time, we definitely do have a cash balance of almost 2.3 million, I believe it is right now. But it's like a false picture, so to speak. So I think it's important that the community realizes that it's one moment in time. We haven't solved our problems yet. We're still going to be short in the next 5 years on capital alone, irregardless of any other increases that we have in operating over the next 5 years also.
And I also, we are, since we co-own the 3 facilities, we're equal ownership of the Vermillion landfill, the Vermillion recycle building, and the Yankton transfer station. For a number of decades, the Vermillion landfill and the Yankton transfer station, I believe, were pretty much the same cost to unload the garbage. Now we've split that off, charging Yankton a higher rate, which I disagree with. Although there are extra expenses, which are real extra expenses to operate the Yankton transfer station. But splitting that rate off, charging ours essentially up to $10 higher, I disagree with that. And that's why in the joint powers meeting, I voted it down.
Yes, part of that in the discussion of the Joint Powers Board, and Commissioner Weber is your representative on that board, the thought is to try to drive haulers to go directly towards dumping in Vermillion and saving the whole operation the expense of, collecting garbage and then us driving it, literally driving our garbage down the road and then driving back and so that's the philosophy of charging more in Yankton than and when we have some additional expenses than in Vermillion. So, and I voted no on the rate here for a different reason, because I think that, we need to be a little more aggressive in rates and be more aggressive for a longer period of time, because a year really is not that long. But Tom and I were nays on the discussion, and so still the recommendation of the joint powers stands is what you have made your motion as. So, but that's just our perspectives, and that's what those boards are for.
And also, we do own 3 properties, or equal share in the recycle building. And according to this, the recommendations from this study from 3 years ago, it does discuss the options of joint powers essentially getting out of the recycling completely, as far as letting the municipalities handle it. I know on the Yankton side we currently do, but the option of Vermillion taking complete control of the recycle building would save joint powers funds and would help offset costs.
That's correct, and that's I guess an ideology that I share with Tom. We take care of our own recycling, single stream, and we are in a joint. We're in a joint powers, which is like a marriage. We're in that marriage with Vermillion right now. They're not independent, but the operation together is. They're not independent on recycling, but the operation together is funded wholly. But that's something that we have brought to Vermillion's attention as being a concern and reality, and starting to talk about more as prices change. And I think right now some of the commodities prices for like cardboard and things are good, but as that changes, that might become more of a discussion in the future, especially when we're looking at the fact that we have so much in capital that we need to take care of.
Thank you for your time. If anybody has any questions either right now or I've been on this board for a number of years. Next month, 3 months, 6 months from now, get a hold of Amy. She can get a hold of me.
My question would be, I was able to follow along, Al, when you were pointing out the figures that reflect the current balance. So for those who want to follow along, I suppose, in our full packet, we do see the breakdown of the numbers in joint powers early on in the packet. But the deficit that you mentioned that's coming up here in the next few years, where do I find that?
That's in the 5-year capital plan, and it was also presented to the Joint Powers Board as part of all this discussion, and that's a quarterly meeting. So the Joint Powers was fully aware of some of the projections. I think about the only difference between what was recommended and what the Joint Powers adopted was we recommended a 4-year increase. And again, it was to address the shortage in capital. The Joint Powers Board felt a little more hesitant about doing a 4-year projection, given the uncertainty, both economically for all inflationary things, and also the state of the industry for garbage and recycling. And that's why they didn't feel comfortable having a 4-year one at this time. They recommended doing a 1-year only and discussing it each year for the next, number of years as we move forward, so. So it's not that there won't be increases in the future. They just didn't feel comfortable having a 4-year one adopted at one time. They wanted to review it annually.
Do we typically not include minutes from the meeting in our full agenda packet? Or are minutes not even kept?
No, minutes are kept by Vermillion, I believe, and we approve them at each quarterly meeting. We probably don't have the minutes because the meeting was I think the meeting was the 16th, so we probably don't have the minutes yet from the latest joint powers.
Amy, while you and Tom voted against this rate increase, I do see in the commission agenda packet, you are recommending that we approve it?
Correct. Just Tom and I had a different opinion, but it was a vote of the board and the motion passed, so we're supporting the recommendation, I'm supporting the recommendation of the full board.
Other commission discussion? Questions? Anybody in the public? All right, we do have a motion and a second to approve the increase in the tipping fee. Roll call.
Benson.
No.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mybom.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Number 3 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-122 regarding a funding request from Riverboat Days. Their request tonight is, I believe, for $10,000. Amy, do you want to say anything, or do you want me to turn it over to Mr. Kraft?
Well, I'm sure Mr. Kraft would like to say something, but what I have for you tonight, Commissioners, is a request for Riverboat Days from the Triple B. As you know, last year you made an allocation to help with some headline entertainment, and that was really well received. Just like everything else, costs are impacting our ability even to have fun here in the community, and also there was a wide success from Riverboat Days to have that larger headline name, to continue to bring those large acts and the other things that Riverboat Days is bringing to their event. They're looking for some additional support from the city. Certainly, Riverboat Days always echoes the in-kind support and assistance that all city department lends to them and the community lends to them to put on their event. But they're asking for an ongoing allocation of $10,000. So my recommendation that you have is to, authorize that for this year in 2023, because I also learned from John that you have to book quite a bit in advance to secure these types of entertainers, and then request that Riverboat Days move through the process like other outside agencies do going forward in the outside agency requests that you guys usually send out in April to folks looking for ongoing support from the city commission. So I'm sure they'll have more to add.
Go ahead and step to the podium. I know he brought, Jake can't resist addressing the city commission. I know John brought typed notes. Jake, what do you got?
Well, I was elected president. I don't know
If you
what that
could,
means.
state
That's
your name. We all know who you are.
That prolongs you for another year.
Yeah. If you could
Hey,
state your name, your address, and the role you serve for
Jake-
Riverboat Days.
Jake Hoffner, 515 West Riverside Drive. City Commissioners, Manager Leon, Mayor, Madam Mayor Moser, and everyone here. Riverboat Days, obviously, we would love to each get up here and give our talk on how wonderful we know it is. I know each one of you, and you're intelligent, and know that this is a big event, the event of the whole area. And 70,000 to 97,650 have attended. We're going to hit 100 this year. I think we are. Now, the point of it is that we hope, and we have proven that with this board and the hard work and dedication, this group, that we continually bring folks from all around the area to see shows. We thought, let's take it up a notch in the entertainment, and that's where you folks come in. And it's just, we're so excited about this year and next year and years to come, because we're trying to find out what works, but we're not going to back off on some of the things that institutionally that we know free. That's one thing we just are adamant about keeping it, because we want to have free entertainment for families. You don't have to spend a thing and come down and watch good concerts. So all in all, folks, I tell you over and over again, I urge a yay vote on this. It's important for our community, and also we can get more people in this, obviously, to showcase our community. What better way to do it than Riverboat Days? You know, and then Tony, your slogan can be, come to our town, your poop always goes down. Hey, thank you again for your past support, and we won't let you down, and appreciate support.
I guess you got to follow that, John, sorry. But if you could state your name, your address, and the role you play for Riverboat Days for the commission.
John Kraft, 308 Dono Boulevard. And I'm co-chair along with Michelle Termanson. It's hard to follow up Jake with that stuff, but just want to again say, I'll give you the cliff notes here because I had a little bit more, but just thank you to the city, the staff, the Parks Department, all the departments that help us out for Riverboat Days. We couldn't do it without you. We appreciate everything that the city provides for us. And one of the great things that we did find out last year after not having Riverboat Days for a year, and then coming back last year, was just a tremendous outpouring of people that came. And we believe that part of that was the national act that we booked. And we'd like to do that again. We already did it again this year. We'd like to do it again going forward. But, you know, a couple of years ago, we really weren't a blip on the radar of some of the entertainment booking companies. They wouldn't even really come and talk to us. But after our show last year, word travels fast. And we've had some companies approach us this year about wanting to work with us as they build their tours, as they build their summers. And in order to do that, we do need to get out ahead of stuff. And we're talking about booking next year at this point, and even, you know, 18, 24 months out, you need to start booking some of these acts. So having a steady stream of revenue to help us kind of solidify that, and being able to book these groups that far out would sure help us along. So we're asking you to help us support this event. Our main goal, just like yours, is to drive tourism here. We like to showcase our city. We've got a great place to live, and we want to attract more people here. And we just feel that the Triple B Fund this is what it's designed for, is to use those funds to bring more people to town, to sleep in our hotels, eat in our restaurants, have a few drinks at our bars, enjoy the tourism things that we have to offer here. And you know, we like to think that if you are able to give us this money every year, that we would return it to you at least one time. Hopefully we can give you 20 back in Triple B money during that month. We've got a new hotel opening up, so our hope is that that's fully booked next year as well. So sorry for the voice, I'm kind of losing my voice here, but we've seen a spark in Riverboat Days last year, and we'd like to kind of keep that moving. So the community is really behind us, and we'd like you guys to get behind us as well.
John, I try to keep up on all things Riverboat Days. Are you publicly announcing who's booked this year?
We are. We have Colt Ford, which I don't particularly know who he is, but my kids do, I guess. And
You're at that age, John.
Yeah, Colt Ford and Saving Abel on Saturday night. So 2 national acts. And then we have some openers on both nights as well. And we've been, like I said, we've been approached by some talent agencies already about next year. So before we even get to this year, we're already talking about next year. So we just like to keep things rolling. I think we have a lot of excitement in the community, especially after last year. There's a lot of potential. You got a 40-year-old diamond in the rough. So we'd like to keep it going. Okay.
Great. Well, no matter what the outcome of the vote is, thanks to all of you in the red shirts sitting back there and all the work that you do for our community pulling this together. I know, oh, we got another one that wants to talk? Perfect. I know it's no easy task and no small feat. If you could state your name, your address, and what role you're serving.
Okay, I'm Michelle Termanson. I live at 621 Augusta Circle in Yankton, and I'm co-chairman with John Kraft for Riverboat Days. I don't want to get up here and repeat and have you listen to the same things. I just wanted to talk about a little bit about what my role has been for Riverboat Days, and that's been to take care of some of the social media portion. I try to read all the comments we get, from time to time, so I can get a handle of what people want, what they expect from our festival, and what they're looking for. When we had Jody last year, everybody was so excited. We got such great comments afterwards because she put on a great show. The feedback before Jody was always, oh, it's probably going to be the same old thing, same bands that we just keep rotating through. So I do, mirror what John and Jake have said. We appreciate so much what the city does for us because it's a lot, and in turn, we hope we can help do that someday and continue to bring. With what John said about our 40th anniversary next year, we really hope to be, a really big one and can make a splash. Thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you. All right, before you, the city recommendation is to go ahead and do 10,000 this year, 10,000 next year, and then encourage Riverboat Days to apply for outside agency funding after that point. So I will ask what your pleasure is, but as you do that, please do not say so moved. If you could clarify if you are with the city recommendation or if you have a different recommendation.
I will move that we approve the city manager's recommendation.
I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other commission discussion, questions?
So this might be for anyone, probably Jake, but as part of the memorandum, it does suggest that, so then going forward, the Riverboat Days committee would also fill out the application that we put out there for outside agencies. So just out of curiosity, what is, and I'm just looking at a sample version that we share, your total estimated agency budget. So, last year, this year, what's your typical agency budget in any given year?
We have our treasurer here.
And the reason I ask that is because
It's a small part. 10,000 is approximately 4.5 to 5% of our budget, the 10,000.
Oh, it's a little more than that. I think in an average year, before we started booking national acts, it was around 225,000 to put it on. By the time you book, your stage, your acts, insurance, security, just the whole expense for the event. But what we're finding with the national acts is you're going to pay, 3, 4, 5 times more than that just for the band, and then that also increases your staging costs, security costs, the hospitality side of that you don't have with a regional band. So as we move forward, it probably wouldn't be out of the question to see a budget closer to 300,000. We do get some help from Yankton Area Arts. It's their main fundraiser for the year, so we're proud to help them. So they do provide a little bit of money to help offset some of the insurance costs. But as far as, all the other just laid-in costs, that's all on us. So it's quite an undertaking. So, and revenue-wise, we like to sell as many beverages as possible, but we also want everyone to be responsible down there as well. So we realize that there's a limit to that revenue. But we still feel that there's a value in the event to bring people to town. So if we can use sponsorships and outside funding to help us get to that next level of entertainment, we think that we can bring people in that wouldn't normally come to Riverboat Days. So we can offset that extra boost that you guys give us with some extra folks in town.
John, could you also talk about, the money's the budget for the season, but also how many other entities you guys fund through Riverboat Days? I mean, there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that get funds. That This is a fundraiser for them by helping out.
It is. We have groups that have helped us from day one. Yankton Area Arts is a big partner with us. Yankton Area Ice Association, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, church groups, you name it. Any organization in town that is willing to come down and volunteer to help us, we in turn make a donation to their organization. And we have groups that come back every year. The Ice Association, the Boy Scouts come every year. Mount Marty University is helping us. USD will make donations to their athletic teams to come over and help run the children's area. So everything that we make down there is either reinvested in the festival through purchasing equipment or infrastructure, or we make donations to those groups. The National Guard for years has helped us with security. So we make a pretty sizable donation to their Christmas fund. So, we like to spread it around as well. So none of it's given out to board members or anything like that. I know you hear a lot of rumors about that, but to be honest with you, it's all reinvested. And, we like to be good stewards of our money, and we've reinvested in the festival. Over the last 5 years, we've purchased all new tents. We've purchased a new children's ticket trailer. We've redid all of our lighting, which was in response to you all, the city taking over the electrical bill for us. So our response to that was to redo all of our flood lighting for the park and go all LED to try and reduce the bill for you guys on that. So we've invested, a few $1,000s in lighting just to try and be responsible that way. So it's truly a community effort, and we want to benefit the community with it. So a lot of groups get some donations out of it as well.
Now, this may be putting Dwayne or Al on the spot, but do you have easy access to the sales tax numbers from last year? I'd be curious to see what August looked like. I mean, I imagine it's going to be a big month for us, and I think it's obvious that there's not a single 3-day event like Riverboat Days throughout the year. In my mind, this triple B donation or this triple B allotment makes complete sense, but I'd just be curious to see what that would show for August of last year compared to maybe July of last year or September.
It looks like Dwayne is looking those up, but right at our fingertips, no. I will say, oh, here it comes. Well, I was like magic, Dwayne.
Dwayne could pull it very fast.
Don't
If you
give
want-
Dwayne a challenge with that.
Dwayne's going to be at Riverboat Days doing magic. There you go. Thanks, Dwayne.
I mean, if you look at the year that we didn't have it versus the year we had it, that's a pretty significant August jump.
Do you have the BBB? Want to scroll down one? Thank you.
And 68, 80, 70, it kind of makes my case, I think, for why we should do it.
And like I said, our hope is that as facilities grow in Yankton, we can help fill those for you as well. That new hotel, I'm sure will be booked for next year.
Do you already know, will the kids from Mount Marty, will they be managing the inflatables again this year?
We're going to reassign those folks to some other areas.
Okay. My 10-year-old might have been to blame because I think he went down the slide like 3,000 times.
No, we,
it could get a little exhausting.
Last year was the football players did it, and I think this year we're going to reassign those guys to stage security. I think they're a little bit more fit for that. So, but they will be there to help us.
I'm just going to add one last thing, and we always talk about Triple B as bringing people into the community from outside the community, more visitors and that. But I also think that there's something of value for, for us, that people that live in the community. And Riverboat Days is very much something that is everyone that lives here. It's a community event. I think that, whatever we can do to help promote it, help move it forward, continue to make it move forward, I think is money well spent. I do think that you do want to spend Triple B monies on getting people from outside, but I think sometimes we forget about everyone that's inside the community, and this is something that's very valuable to all of us.
Any other further commission discussion or questions? Anybody in the public want to address the commission on this agenda item? Roll call.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Abstain affiliation.
Benson.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. So thank you, Riverboat Days Committee, and all the work you do on behalf of our committee to roll out the red carpet, not only for our citizens, but from those that come from near and far and partake in our events. And best of luck to you on your festivities this year. Moving on, in new business, number 4 is consideration of memorandum 22-124 regarding resolution 22-28, which is a plat of lot 1A in lot 1 of block 6 in Lower Yankton. Address is 618 Douglas Avenue. Tammy, Craig, and Alan Vorchek, owners. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. Number 5 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-125, establishing July 11th, 2022 as the date for a public hearing to consider resolution 22-29 to vacate the right-of-way at said address above, which is 618 Douglas. That's for about 4.3 feet west and 143 feet of 7th Street right-of-way. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Dave's even at the mic. We don't even have it, okay. Anybody in the community? Roll call.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Number 6 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-112, a discussion about initiating the sale process of lot 1, which is a tract of land located on Broadway Avenue. Location is the east side of the 2500 and 2600 blocks of Broadway Avenue. City of Yankton is owner. This is the land adjacent to the cemetery. Before I ask for a motion, because I know there's going to be a lot of discussion around this. Amy's got her mic on. Okay. I was like, do you want to start with Amy? Do we want to start with Dave? I feel like I'm playing tennis here.
Yeah, so I'll just give a few comments to the commission and to the public. So as the commissioners know, this is a parcel of land that's come up a number of times throughout Yankton's history as something that people have expressed interest in development of. And I think the last time there was a lot of conversation was about the time when Fire Station 2 was being proposed and a location was sought for Fire Station 2. Since that time, there have been requests periodically about that parcel of land, and those have, in recent years, become, I guess, more active in our community, and both requests from us as well as for our economic YPG or excuse me, Yankton Thrive entity. So, you know, we put together an RFP, which you have in your packet for you, if in fact that's something you wanted to explore in terms of what proposals might be out there if someone were to be interested in development of that frontage area. It certainly is not necessarily a final version. We have some restrictions there, as you probably saw, about things we would recommend that if you did do an RFP for the property that you would not want to see there or may not want to see there, you can add or subtract from those. Also, you know, there might be other elements in the RFP that we put in, which we thought were good additions that you may not. You may not want to move forward with an RFP altogether. If you do, there's no requirement that if you go out for an RFP and you get proposals that you take any of them or consider any of them or accept any of them or take it any further. But you certainly may. But, you know, what we would do tonight, if you gave us the direction of, yes, we want to have an RFP, and we would ask some clarifying questions. I think we have some questions about timeline and things of that nature we want to get from you, then we would move ahead and, you know, have you take action on this document once it's complete, if you make additions or changes, what have you. But at this point, we understood our direction to be, you know, put together something for you to respond to and consider as to whether or not you're interested in moving forward. So what we're looking for tonight is not for you to vote, rather to give the staff direction on what it is you want to do here and what in this document, if you do want to move forward, do you want to see changed. How'd I do, Dave? See? Thank you.
All right, Dave, I'll let you take over. I don't know if it's best to just kind of walk through the bigger components of the RFP, or if you have a set speech you were going to provide, go for it.
City Manager Leone covered it all pretty well. Anytime we sell property in a manner where we want to solicit inquiries, we do produce what's called a request for proposal and general conditions, which describes the property to people that may be interested in it. It describes some of the processes that may be available to potential developers in the community. For example, depending upon the type of business that be there, that ends up there. Other tools could be discussed, like sales tax rebates or tax increment districts, so we describe that. We describe the zoning and allowable uses there in the RFP, and then we describe what the developer responsibilities would be in preparing a submittal for your consideration. As City Manager Leone said, we would need to fill in some blanks on timelines, but typically you want to give prospects a minimum of 45 to 60 days to prepare a proposal, because if you do move forward with this, you want to see a professionally prepared proposal, not a drawing on a napkin per se. And then the other thing that's included is a sample set of covenants that would be applied to the property, which would further define what could or couldn't be on the site, and specifically listing about 8 different types of businesses or occupancies that you would not want on the site, because anytime the city's in a chain of title, there's some additional responsibility for making sure that the eventual use is representative of what the community's goals are. So we make sure and include some very specific things in that list. And then we also include a pretty strict set of clawback provisions. And in this case, that clawback provision is even recommended to be ramped up a little bit. We usually say if the development doesn't occur as proposed within X amount of time, the property is returned to the city for what the original purchase price would be. In this case, we discussed, based on its location, that there actually be a penalty associated for non-performance. So the reimbursement as proposed in this draft would be actually for only 75% of what we were paid initially. So there'd be a 25% penalty for non-performance if you move forward with this. Other than that, I'd be willing to try and answer any questions. I know City Attorney Dan Herder also was involved in helping put the documents together, so maybe he can help with questions too.
Dave, remind me again, because a couple questions that I have. If you heard me say this, I called it land adjacent to the cemetery. Walk me through again what you shared at the last meeting as far as what you found out. I think the last meeting maybe I misunderstood, but in the last meeting that we had, did you say that through a court process or through paperwork or investigation that this is not declared cemetery land? Or how was that stated, or what was shared? Ross wasn't here at the last meeting, so now we can really put him on.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, this was quite a process over the winter. So in looking at this property carefully, there's a procedure under South Dakota law that requires anything that was dedicated as cemetery land to be certified that it's not cemetery land and won't be needed as cemetery land for a period of at least 20 years in terms of our available space that's been allocated to cemetery use. And we did not find any place that dedicated this as cemetery. However, we did find a very odd recording that dated back to about 1929-ish. No, there's the first one. There was an older one, much older one that was not very descriptive, but it was locations. It looked like a layout of individual site plots, cemetery plots. But it lacked any description. It didn't have the necessities that the law required. So out of an overabundance of caution, we went through the process treating it as though it was dedicated for cemetery plot use all the way to Broadway. And we, presented this commission with the data that justified a finding that we weren't going to need to use that for at least 20 years. In fact, the findings were it was in excess of 160 years worth of available land without this space included. So this commission made that finding. It was then presented to the court, and the court affirmed that through the procedures. So we took care of that over the winter. And then at the same time, we also discovered a land title problem, which is what Dave was getting to. Apparently, the city didn't actually own its own cemetery. There was a prior private cemetery association. It made findings in 1972 that it didn't want to operate anymore, and it wanted to turn over the cemetery and all of its resources and the perpetual care fund and everything that it had to the city. The city accepted it and has been operating the cemetery ever since, but they didn't use the proper legal procedures to actually transfer the ownership of the land to the city. So since we had to go to court anyway to clean up this issue with the plots all the way to the edge of Broadway, we had the court also rule through what we call the quiet title procedures that the land is in fact owned by the city, and the court did that. So that order has been recorded with the Register of Deeds, and the City of Yankton is now officially the owner, and we officially have the right to consider other uses for that area that's designated for this RFP, but that does not mean this commission actually has to put it to other uses. It's just available now for you to consider.
So the public understands, can you lay out exactly how the RFP process would play out if we proceed?
Sure, the next step would be the consideration of a resolution actually authorizing that process take place, and then establishing a period of time during which we would accept proposals. Those proposals would come in, sealed, and essentially be opened similar to how we go through a bid opening process. The proposals, as City Manager Leon said, could be accepted, or they could all be rejected. There could be a process where, depending upon the type of project it is, we would partner with the Yankton Thrive potentially for the transfer of the property. That seems likely, and similar to how we have with other parcels, that seems like it would be a good idea. But you're probably talking about 2.5 months or 3 months to get through all of those actions before you would have something before you that you could act on formally. And there'd be marketing, of course, in process in multiple ways to try and gain interest, if that's what the commission wanted.
So when the proposals are received and they're opened, that would happen publicly or in an executive session? I just want to be clear for the public how this process would play out so they understand.
So in the past, when we've requested proposals in this manner, it has happened at what is formally advertised as a bid opening. So they're open for anybody to attend. Yeah, they aren't at city commission meetings necessarily. That would be your choice also.
Dave, one of the things that we've talked about is this, it would be butting up against a cemetery, and we want to be respectful of that. Can you walk us through, and again, because I know this will be a topic for the public too, what is in this currently that is respecting the location of the land and that it is adjacent to a cemetery? I'm looking through it and I'm like, well, I think 4B talks a little bit about that, but what has been put into the RFP with respect to that?
So the first thing that occurred when the plat was created was the proposed site stayed 50 feet away from the westernmost concrete drive in the cemetery, which includes that strip of existing trees located.
Dwayne, I'm sorry, Dave. Dwayne, could you pull up the map from the agenda packet, please?
West of that westernmost concrete drive. So that created initially a 50-foot buffer just with the plat. The other thing is within the covenants, we're pretty specific, not just in this location with others, that street-facing aspects of the proposed development need to have meet certain aesthetic criteria as far as construction materials and where air handling units and dumpsters and things like that are associated with a development. And in this case, the proposed covenants include the east side also being considered accessible to the traveling public. In other words, persons at the cemetery, so that side would be treated the same as the north, south, and west frontages. So essentially, this would have 4 frontages, all having to meet aesthetic improvement requirements.
So just to be clear, if an RFP is created and we get a proposal, we do not have to accept, legally, do we have to accept that proposal even if it meets our criteria?
No. This isn't like awarding a bid where, the low bidder gets awarded. This is a proposal that you can accept or reject. It could be rejected for no cause.
Okay. And the reason I asked that, I had a citizen contact me today, and they were concerned that that also, I was told, and I'm just clarifying, so this was dedicated to, was it given to the city for cemetery ground, or exactly how did that transpire? Do we know?
There was a board resolution by the Yankton Cemetery Association, which was a nonprofit cemetery corporation, that said, we give all of our stuff to the city of Yankton, we're out of here.
Okay.
So there was no stipulations on that transfer, and they didn't do it right. They were in such a hurry to get out. I don't know if they're having problems with volunteers or what, but there was no stipulations on that. It was just the entirety of that land. The only thing I know for sure is that back in the 1920s, they thought that they were going to put bodies all the way up against Broadway, and they didn't get even remotely close to that.
Sure. Okay.
So-
And I wonder too, would it be, I know we have stipulations for the east side of that, of the abutting to the cemetery. What would it look like if we put together, or helped put together some type of landscaping architects idea of maybe what a respectful or a, what that should look like? It concerns me that we do have the cemetery there, and I do want to make sure we are respectful. I know we're calling that out in our request for proposal, that there is this will have to be met, but I wonder if it wouldn't be potentially money well spent to come up with something to show concerned citizens.
I understand the question. For discussion's sake, I would say that I think this site is going to be looked at by developers fairly favorably, and I wouldn't want to prepare something that might limit a prospect from considering a vision beyond what we might even be anticipating. In other words, I think there's a good chance we might get something that looks better than what we could even envision if we did some sort of layout. So I think we can do that, but a part of me would be in the arena of recommending let the private sector hire their consultants to prepare the design, and that might even exceed what we're thinking.
Okay, fair enough. And then what I would ask too then, and that's a great plan that we don't have to spend that money, but I would also like again, I think it's important, like we did with the pool, to potentially have that public input. Now that may or may not change how things look there, but I still think it's important to have that public input and what that might look like after that design has come up with. So I think the public should have input. If a developer comes in there and says, this is what we want, and we say, that looks great, but then we have a bunch of people that say, that's not cool. I want to make sure that we're respecting their input as well.
You would have an item on the agenda, and that could take any form that you wanted as far as consideration of that item when that RFP came in.
And we do also specify in here too, a whole landscaping plan that's got to go to our city manager, that she gets some significant input on that too. So whoever wants to provide a proposal to us, it's got to have a landscaping plan that first passes muster with her. And if you've ever seen how green her lawn is.
I got the landscaping down.
She's got the landscaping. And I think we discussed even at one of our last meetings, no matter what we do, we might want to look at that tree line, right? No matter what we do, just to even, because it's pretty thick on some areas, but that tree line could use some work too.
That was kind of the theory behind the 50 feet, which is probably, more than maybe is needed in that space to let us do landscaping that we might want to do.
That's a good point. Other commission discussion? This is a discussion item, which technically we're not voting on tonight, but we will allow public input since there is not a vote tonight. But I know Charlie's got a list, so no. No, we do want to hear from the public, so.
Hang on one sec, Steph. I've got something real quick. As far as a timeline, if we move forward, if we put it out there, for bid. My biggest concern is that we give it enough time that everyone has an opportunity to take a look at this thing. So it's not just to ram it through, but give it time, give everyone an opportunity. It's the city's property. I feel that everyone needs to be aware, if we are to move forward with it, that everyone needs to be aware that it's it has the potential of being available, just so that it's, we're completely transparent with the fact that the property may be for sale.
Commission can set the pace on that, however you guys like to. If you were moving forward, this is a good time, I guess, to start that process out and, throughout the fall and winter, take things in that you might receive, or the fall, and then make a decision in the winter. And then if you were to move forward with the transaction, then there would be a building season coming up then after that. We as a staff, whatever timeline you want, if you want to move forward, is fine with. We have lots to work on, so if you aren't ready to do that, or you want to just sit on it for a while too, that's all entirely up to you.
Please state your name and your address and go ahead.
Thank you. Charlie Gross, 1510 Burley. I'm still not understanding, Ross. This was land transferred from the Yankton Cemetery Association to the city. Is that not correct?
That was their intent, but they never actually did it. They didn't get it finished. They didn't do it right.
But the origin of this property was Cemetery Association.
That's where it came from, yes.
Okay, thank you. Since it's cemetery land, does that mean the proceeds of the sale of this land then have to go into the trust fund?
No.
Okay.
Good question, no.
For the record, so you all know, my wife's cousin, father, was one of the men that was involved in the transfer. And my wife's cousin, who's still alive and has her faculties, she's actually younger than I am, remembers the conversation with her father that this land would be held in perpetuity by the city for purpose of a cemetery. Okay? Someplace there's a letter to that effect. Nobody can find it. The city should have a file. Apparently it was not filed with the deed, which in my mind it should have been.
Yeah.
But
there were lots of letters, lots of historical records that we went through, dozens of files, but we did not find that. I was hoping we would find something to give us some context, but we were unsuccessful.
okay. Well, the other thing I would remind the commission, I was involved in this similar discussion back in, I think it was about 2007, when a local contractor wanted to develop that area. And the commission at that time said no. But at that time, we were told by, and Todd's not here, by the park director, that we had 160 years worth of plots left in the cemetery. I find it interesting that 15 years later, we still have 160 years, but in that intervening time, I've buried my wife, my mother, my mother-in-law, my niece, my mother's cousin and her husband in that cemetery. We can't possibly have 160 lots left, and I would encourage all of you to go take a drive through the west side of that cemetery. I'm trying to figure out where you think you have 160 lots left. I would challenge that.
Years, not lots.
160 years.
Yeah, I've kind of tried to steer away from that conversation because I don't know where that number came from. And I guess we could calculate death rates, and lot sizes, but that's a little bit hard to do too. So
I understand.
Some people don't get buried here, some people get cremated, things have changed a little bit. So that was what we were saying. And yeah, those numbers definitely have changed, but I don't know that that's going to be a valuable number to talk about going forward, because I don't know if anyone can say that,
Well, I can tell you this, that back in 1910, 1912, my great-grandfather bought 36 lots. We're down to 2 that we have left in the family area. So I've got cousins that want to come back to Yankton to be buried, and yeah, we're going to need to go someplace else. But anyway, that's just for the record. You talked earlier tonight about quality of life. Again, go to the cemetery, stand at the top of the hill, and tell me why you would want to create a commercial zone at the bottom of the hill. I really struggle with that. Right now, you've got a historic cemetery. It's a unique situation. You have green space. What are you doing at West Side Park? You're expanding the green space. Why would we take this green space and destroy it? I don't understand that. I just have to ask you why we're doing that. It would make more sense to do some landscaping if you want to develop that area. But again, quality of life, we don't need the money. Well, I mean, is that the reason? Is that what's driving this? If you go across the street, you've got land on the south of the Holiday Inn that's available. On the north side of the Holiday Inn Express, you've got land that's available. We've got 30 acres out at the HSC grounds that's available. We still have land in front of Menards that's available. You know, it can't be that development is driving this. We've got way too much available land as it is. And so, you know, to take something that is aesthetically pleasing, that is green, and do something else with it, I'm really struggling to understand why you would do that. Which of you represents the people that are buried there? Okay.
I have half a dozen family members who are.
Yeah.
And they're also at Sacred Heart Cemetery.
So I've probably talked to a dozen people today. I only had one that said, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea." The other 11 did not think this was a great idea. So I pass that on to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Anybody else in the public? All right, obviously there's no vote, so I'm not going to ask for a motion, but we do need to indicate to Dave and City Manager Leon and the city staff what we'd like to do at this point. So I would ask for any thoughts on that.
I am in favor of proceeding with the request for proposals. We are in the driver's seat, so, you know, if we don't get any projects that seem like they're a fit for this piece of property, we wouldn't have to proceed. To Charlie's point about what it currently is, I do agree that, you know, if we're just gonna leave this blank slate of lawn there, if that's the decision we're going to continually make as this is revisited, then we should do more with that piece of property, make it more valuable to the public, whether that's, and again, make it complementary to the cemetery, whether that's some sort of garden, walking garden, you know, things that will cost some money. But if we're going to use it for that purpose, let's make it something that the public can use rather than just something that our staff has to mow. And then people look at it and they're like, well, what is that property? Why, you know, can I buy it? Can I develop it? And so if that's the decision the community makes on this subject, then I think that maybe that's a way to dissuade interest in development so we aren't revisiting this every 10, 15 years.
Something that Charlie brought up that I want to reiterate because he stated it very well. if we sell this money, or excuse me, if we sell this property, what are we going to do with the money? Do we need the money? And I don't think we've all been on the same page as to, what's the purpose of selling the property if we're not all on the same page on what we're going to do with the funds. Because I would say that we're probably all on the same page, and we know it too. It's not an amount of money that's going to go into the perpetual care fund for the cemetery. And truth be told, it wouldn't need to. It's one of the big advantages that I've spoke to for many, many years now, and that is we are a first-class municipality in the state of South Dakota, and we run a cemetery. We don't need a perpetual care fund to continue to maintain the cemetery. We don't even use the funds that are in that perpetual care fund. We make it happen that things continue to look nice at our cemetery because it is our city's cemetery, and we want to make it look nice to everyone who goes there and visits the loved ones who have passed. I don't think anyone would argue that the city has done a bad job at any point in time since we've been the steward for that property of keeping things looking nice at pretty considerable expense. It's not cheap. We've put out RFPs before to see what it would cost us to have that property mowed, for instance, by a third party. So it's a significant amount of manpower that it takes to keep the cemetery looking nice. But again, Charlie's question is something that's going to be asked of all of us, and that is, if we're going to sell this property, what are we going to do with those funds? I'm in agreement that it's important for us to follow through on the RFP. I think it's respectfully written. That's the first word that comes to mind for me. And we just don't know what level of interest is out there. We may all be surprised. Certainly, constituents of ours may even be surprised at the level of the level of interest that we get. That is also potentially very considerate of who their neighbors are going to be to their east, and that'd be great to see. So, it's probably not a question that we're going to all answer here tonight, but we definitely need to be mindful of it going forward. What are we going to be doing with these funds?
I would jump in and say that I am hesitant to proceed, and I know we're not voting. I know we've got all of the ducks in a row, and I really am struggling to envision a project. I can't see in my own head something that I can get behind. I start reading about how we're going to have to hide the dumpsters and the air conditioning and stuff. It just doesn't sit right. And it's more a feeling than anything else. I just don't know why we would move on it now. I don't know. I don't know. I think it causes more anxiety and distress and potentially hurt with some of our citizens who I've heard from extensively today. And it feels like borrowing trouble. I'll just say it that way.
I think it's important that we have the conversation. I mean, that was kind of one of the things about putting this together, is to basically to force the conversation, talk about it. Put a proposal together and see what that does. I think it's important that we do something with that property, whether that's the city. The city continues forward owning it, but does something with it. Right now, it's just been a spot that Chris Bornitz mows on a big mower, and it's not visually. I don't see it as I know it's a green space, and I agree with that, and I'm not for filling in every green space, but I am for utilizing green spaces, and I don't think it's being utilized right now. I think it's a large mowed area. That's what it is. So if we're not doing, if we're not, I guess that was my reasoning for wanting to move forward with like an RFP, was just to push the conversation forward. Let's talk about what should we do with this thing? What should we do with this property? If it's something that, you know, is a great benefit to the cemetery, then I think it should be more than just a mowed field. And I guess that's why I'm somewhat in favor of moving the RFP forward, just to have the conversation. And if we decide that, you know, if the community voices the opinion that no, we want to keep this and we should do something with this, then that's what we should do. But without pushing it forward, you don't know what the community wants. So I think that, you know, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted the community to come here and come up and speak. And I'd like to hear more from the community as far as what they feel is the right thing to do with, you know, city-owned property. It's all of our property.
Dave, is there anything in here that's a big chunk of land that specifically would let somebody, if they put an RFP in, declare how much land, or would they have to take the entire plat?
We could still consider options related to that. I mean, just thinking about a big piece of land that size, I would think that an initial proposal would be some sort of anchor tenant, and then whoever was the developer at that time and owner of the remainder of the property would also have to have a build-out schedule, and we would have clawback provisions on that remainder of the property. So if you're right, it's probably too big for one project in a town this size. So I think that the developer would probably present some sort of anchor tenant and then a build-out plan for the remainder of it over time.
Yeah, for context, I suppose the neighbor to the west there, Holiday Inn Express, that's like 1.6 acres. So we're talking, you know, not quite 8 acres here. But, you know, honestly, again, I look at it from the perspective of how great would it be if we get back proposals that include 10, 15, 20 water sewer hookups, 50 water sewer hookups. I mean, that's a huge deal. There's certainly a lot of economic development potential inside of a little over 7.5 acres at that location along Broadway.
No matter what happens as we move forward, I just want to make sure that we are being as respectful as possible to the cemetery. And I think we talk in circles about things that we don't know about. I think once we maybe have a potential proposal, again, as long as we are in the driver's seat and we do not have to accept it, maybe it's worth having the conversation. But no matter the conversation, I can't state enough how important it is to make sure that we are being respectful, most importantly.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of moving forward and listening, but there's a delicate balance here, and you know, I think we're going to do a good job, but I think we have the commission group of people that will listen and be respectful of all parties. But I don't want to ignore what could be on this. I want to hear what some options could be, but I also do appreciate what Charlie brought up to the table. I've got relatives in the cemetery as well, my grandparents, but I also look at the future of our community, and as we grow rooftops, we need more commercial space, and there are options on Broadway right now, but you know, that doesn't mean there will be in the future. So I don't think this is we have to do something now. Absolutely not. Let's listen and hear what the options are, and you never know what might surprise us.
All right, I'm seeing head nods. Amy, does that give you enough direction on moving forward?
Yeah, I think that we do have enough direction. Are there any details, Dave, that you need in terms of language that are missing from the document that you need filled in to proceed?
Not specifically. I think, we've kind of been through it at the staff level and with the city attorney several times to create the format you've seen. I would say that maybe in the next several days, if anybody thinks of something any commissioner thinks of something, that they email that to you and keep us in
Yeah.
the loop.
I think that would be great in the sense that too, just right now, our calendar, trying to work on the budget here is a little bit insurmountable. So we probably won't get that RFP out for a little while yet here, but we'll make sure we communicate with you so you know what timeline we're talking about.
That'd be great. I know, by no means, like we've said, we're not in a hurry to sell this. I think it's just an opportunity to see what's out there. And, I agree with all of you who said this is very important to be respectful of that. And I think what makes me comfortable with this is the fact that we don't have to do anything. If what we get back, I believe I said to somebody today, I'm not putting a square peg in a round hole. You're right, we don't need the money, but I think it's just the opportunity to see what's out there, and we might be pleasantly surprised, or we may not, and then we're not really out anything because we're not being forced to do anything. So, all right, I appreciate that discussion, and obviously we'll be very open with the public as we move forward as this progresses to make sure that input and direction is continuously taken on that. Number 7 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-126 regarding resolution 22-30, funding for the Yankton Youth Soccer Association Soccer Park Project. This is for $125,000, which would be coming from bid. In your memorandum, it states $75,000 up front and $50,000 over a period of time not to exceed 10 years. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Wes, you've been sitting so patiently tonight. I would invite you up to the podium. State your name, your association with the Yankton Soccer Association, and then any thoughts. Project, there's a lot of dirt being moved out there, but what do you see this funding going towards, or is there specifics for it?
Wes Chambers, 2806 Arlington Avenue. I am the co-fundraising chairs for the Yankton Youth Soccer Association. I came tonight just to continue to see this project move forward. So we're really excited. We're in the home stretch. If you've been out there, there's just a ton of dirt work. But this money is infrastructure. We're going to be using it specifically to finish the complex. We're putting a comfort station and concession stand out there. But as we presented to the bid board, and it's in the notes, we hold 3 events a year that are in the off season, and we fill hotel rooms in Yankton, and we're very, very proud of that. And we put together some really strong economic numbers that the bid board reviewed and supported our project. So I just wanted to see it all the way through the process. So thank you.
Hey, Wes, quick question for you. You had originally went to the bid board for $250,000, so that's not what you got back from the bid board. But where does that leave you as far as your fundraising goals? I mean, originally I think it was like a $2 million project for you guys, but where does that still leave you with your overall need yet at this point?
Right now, Tony, I would say we are setting, the project is $2.5 million. That's the number we're shooting for, is $2.5 million to get the park finished. And right now, I would say we're somewhere around 2.2 million, working on a couple other things right now. So 300,000 to go.
So nothing's stopping construction at this point in time?
No, we have the confidence and the support of our lender and First Dakota to go ahead with the construction side of the project, but we are going to fundraise for the full balance.
Tony, with the slogan Jake gave you, you could probably fund the bathhouses.
Thank you again.
Any other commission discussion? Questions? Dave's turning on the mic. Was there anything you wanted to share? I know you attend the bid meetings.
I feel obligated to just spend a minute talking about the bid board and how it functions, because they meet so infrequently that it's easy to forget their composition and how they function. And they're unique in the amount of authority they have in how their funds are spent, because they have the ability to dissolve themselves if their funds start to get spent in ways or in amounts that they don't agree with by you being the governing body, the agency that adopted the ordinance that created them. So in Yankton, the bid district is created amongst hoteliers, and they have a 7-member board that votes, and they have a city commission liaison. Also, that's in the discussion as it occurs as a non-voting member, and so there's 4 of them that have to be hoteliers. A majority of them have to be hoteliers, and they essentially collect the funds and remit them to Allen Finance, $2 a night per stay, and their focus has been to do brick and mortar projects that fill hotels during the off season, so shoulder seasons and winter seasons. Their focus hasn't been to do projects in the summer months because their occupancy rates are so high at that time. But I'd be willing to try and answer any other questions about the bid board and its history for you if you have further questions, but it's unique in that they have a lot of authority over how their funds get expended, more so than a situation like a park board or a planning commission or somebody else that makes a recommendation on the CIP or another project. So
I've got a quick question. Because they meet infrequently, if someone is looking to do a proposal to them, what would be the correct procedure to put a proposal to the bid board?
So, long answer to a short question, I'm sorry. But yeah, they could contact any of the bid board members who are listed on the city's website, or specifically the chair would be the best person to contact, and that's Dan Speck. They could also contact city manager or myself. If you look at their budget, they've got 92% of their annual revenue already committed, so there's not a lot of room to maneuver. And this project and the next one you'll consider eat up a substantial amount of their reserves, so they're not going to have a lot of money to discuss. They also give money to the CVB, to Yankton Thrive every year, to provide for smaller events, because when the bid board initially started, they started having requests for $1,000 or $2,000 for smaller events, and that is not in their mission. So what they did instead was just to say, hey, CVB, we're going to give you this much a year so that you can deal with these smaller requests. So, but yeah, contact Chairman Speck or myself, and they will meet as needed, depending on the project.
When was the last time that the bid board met, aside from this meeting? Would it have been the field house?
No, it was after the Olympics. It was after the GPAC tournament got moved here.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
The last funding consideration that was discussed in front of them was when GPAC got moved here during COVID.
Thank you.
All right, any other commission discussion?
I do. I just have a quick question, just so I understand, and the public too. So, if it's not our money and it can be dissolved, why are we making the decision?
Because that's how state law and the city ordinance is created, so that the city commission creates bid districts. In this situation with hoteliers, there's other parts of state law that create more authority as far as the bid board is concerned. So it's in your budget as a city. We're responsible for collecting the revenues, and we get a small administrative fee for doing that. But it's targeted for those bid board members to pretty much direct where the assistance is provided to benefit the community and their businesses also.
And I was also told, now is it the shoulder seasons? Is that why it's hooked with the hotels, or is it all season long, as far as funding, et cetera?
So what they've targeted, and they can change their mind, but what from the beginning of the creation of the bid board is their occupancies in the summer months are good, are high for their purposes. And so they've been targeting brick and mortar projects that occur in the winter, or events that occur in the winter, or in the shoulder seasons, October, November through April. So times when their hotels aren't as full.
Thank you.
Dave, it is also the case that when the original conversation started around the bid board, this is going back many years now. I don't remember exactly when, 2009 or 10. Originally, the idea was that the board would form around this idea of acquiring the HSC property. That obviously changed in short order, but is that accurate? That early stages of the bid coming together were to purchase the HSC property, and then it transitioned more into this idea of an athletic complex, field house kind of mission.
So I remember discussions about the potential of multiple bids in the community, and I remember the discussions about one of them being focused on HSC property. So there can be multiple bid districts in the city. There doesn't only have to be just one. This one, I don't remember that being a component. Bid district number 1 as adopted, I don't remember that being a component of that discussion. So I'd have to defer or go back and talk to some other board members. But I do remember the discussion about the potential for a bid district and that involved the HSC property. But I don't know that it
Dave,
had
my
the hotelier
memory
component.
concurs with yours. There was a lot of discussion in the early days about, they felt very strongly this is their funding and they wanted to make sure it went to purposes that would benefit hotels.
Yeah, and we've also discussed the possibility of a bid district downtown, and then that board of directors would have a lot of influence on if it's created, on how those funds got spent. So this was hotel-specific, and their mission to date has been to drive occupancy in shoulder season and off-season through events or brick-and-mortar projects that promote events in that time of year.
Any other questions, comments from the commission? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, Wes, to you and to all of the soccer board and everything that's going on out there. I am excited to see it done, and good job and kudos to you and Sandra and Ellie and the folks that I know have worked diligently on getting those outside funds to make this project possible, and thanks for being a good partner with us.
Thank you.
All right, number 8 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-127 regarding resolution 22-31, funding for the National Field Archery Association Foundation World Tournament. That would be the bid through the bid board again, who approved and coming before you tonight is $7,200. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Schramm.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. And number 9 under new business is consideration of memorandum 22-128 regarding resolution 22-32, which is the bid board membership and term recommendations. I don't know if any of you downloaded the packet earlier, but you would have received an email today to say there was an error and that the correct memorandum is in the packet as attached. I just wanted to notate that if anybody would have copied anything ahead of time. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any commission discussion? Anybody in the public? Roll call.
Weber.
Aye.
Villanueva.
Aye.
Benson.
Aye.
Brunig.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Maibaum.
Aye.
Minor.
Aye.
Schramm.
Aye.
Mayor Mosher.
Aye, motion carries. There is no other business in front of the city commission tonight, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting of June 27th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. And anybody abstaining? This meeting is adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.